Arg ahoy mateys, and welcome to some trade deadline action in Out of the Park Baseball 25 featuring the Pittsburgh Pirates and Captain Jack Sparrow. If you've been following us along on this adventure, you'll know that we are not very good. So we are sellers going into the trade deadline here, and I wanted to start, as we can go out here and try and plunder some booty from the rest of the league, by sort of taking a map and seeing what kind of booty is available to us. So I have located some key teams and some key players that I think are worth investigating for guys that just don't really have much of a future for us moving forward, which I'll get into in a second. One of those teams is the Seattle Mariners, and they have a handful of guys I like. I like Colt Emerson most importantly. I think he is a plus caliber middle infield prospect who fits into what we're looking for our organization. The only thing that's slightly disappointing about him is he doesn't have a ton of power and he tends to be a ground ball hitter, but he seems to be a plus in all other categories there. He's a long-term project, but someone worth stashing that could probably pay off for us down the road. He's not going to be an all-star or anything, or at least I doubt he will be, but he should be a possible everyday shortstop for several years for us. So I like him as an option here. I also like, looking at this, Lazaro Montez, I think with the power upside here is a great guy to take a swing at, especially if we're not going to have to give up much to acquire him. So that's someone worth taking a shot at. Blake Rambush is a guy that I don't think is a great option, but he's not a bad option either. He's a plus base runner. He has positional flexibility in the infield at second, third, and short, though he's not great at any of those. And he seems to be a decent hitter. If you look at the big club, he's hitting .333, though. It's only been one game. Didn't do too hot in AAA, but was very good in AA this year for them. And he's a guy who could fill in immediately for us at the pro level if we needed him to, but he's also a guy that we could sit and cool for a while. So I like that. Jimmy Joyce is another guy, not a great pitching prospect, but someone that's worth taking and someone that we could move somewhere else down the line. I like that he's a ground ball pitcher. And he had a decent run in AA this year before getting moved to AAA, where he's kind of struggled a bit, but someone that we could develop moving forward. So those are kind of the key guys I'm looking at there. I think Michael Arroyo's another guy that could be good. Similar in terms of upside, maybe a little higher upside than Colt Emerson, but he's a right-handed hitter, which I like a little bit less. And he doesn't have great speed for a contact hitter, but otherwise he could be another guy that we're looking at. I think Harry Ford and Cole Young and Jonathan Clace, at least in this game, are going to be a little bit out of our budget. So Seattle is definitely one of the trade partners we're looking at, and they are a team that we could send Rowdy Tellez to if we needed to, because they need first base versatility there. And every team could use starting pitching, let's be honest. So Mariners, team number one. The Kansas City Royals, another team. The Royals don't have a great farm system, so I don't think we're going to be able to pilfer much from them. I would like to see if I can make a move for Carter Jensen. He's a left-handed power-hitting catcher, someone that could fill a spot in our long-term plans, and especially if he does plan out along with Endy Chavez, that actually makes Henry Davis tradable, and he's a trade asset right now. I would like long-term for Henry Davis to work out, but if he doesn't, which he's not right now this season, he's worth more to us as a trade piece. I think he's our second most valuable trade piece behind Paul Skeens right now, according to most of the AI GMs in the league. Gavin Cross is another guy that I like. Again, he's not great at much of anything, but he's a plus hitter kind of across the board. He's a lefty. Again, we like lefties over righties. Decent base runner, decent fielder. So all in all, I think a good prospect to look at. He's done very well in the minors so far this season. and he has the positional versatility of right and center, and right is a position that we do need to fill long term. Some other guys here that don't kind of jump off the page, but Cade Povich could be an interesting pitching prospect to get. He's a lefty and he's decent kind of across the board, not great across the board, but something that could be worth stashing. And the other two were, if I sort by stuff here, Steven Cruz and Will Klein are both guys that I think we could acquire as relief pitchers. Both have huge control issues, but they seem to have plus fastball, curveball pitches. And even Cruz, what I do kind of like about him is he's got the fastball slider here, but he also has a changeup and cutter, and he might be a perfect opener if we do kind of the follower role that the AI seems to want to do with Eric Lauer here. He might be the perfect guy to start a game and go once through the lineup before you get to Lauer with the plus fastball and the plus slider there. So Royals, I think, an interesting trade partner. They need starting pitching and relief pitching, and we have plenty of that to offer. They also could use a second baseman or third baseman, and I'm open to trading Nick Gordon here, even though I don't want to. We'll get into what I'm looking to get rid of here in a second. But my last trade partner that I'm interested in is the Boston Red Sox. I would really like to get Roman Anthony or Marcelo Mayer, but we just don't have the assets to get either of them. Kyle Teal's a maybe, but I also doubt we have the assets to get him too. But he would be a great guy to have in our organization. The guys that I do think are worth pursuing here are probably going to be Blaze Jordan. He's not going to be a huge piece of the puzzle if we do get him, but he could be a guy who's like our right-handed first baseman behind whoever is our regular everyday first baseman. He's definitely a contact hitter. He's done well in the minor leagues so far, so I think that could translate to the pros, but I don't think he would be the long-term solution at first base, but definitely could be a fill-in guy there. I wish he had a little bit more position versatility. The other two guys that I think are interesting, if we sort again by contact stuff here, are a couple pitching prospects. Brian Mata, who was once considered one of the best pitching prospects in the league before the last few years just completely derailed this kid's career. He seems to be, as far as his ratings, seems to be plus in every category. He has 3+ pitches that could develop into plus pitches depending on how he does. He's an extreme ground ball power pitcher, but he has no control, and you can see that kind of in his stats across the board here, though he has done pretty well in AAA this season. So he would be a guy worth pursuing. Another guy with similar stats, I think he has more upside, would be Wikelman Gonzales here. Again, 3+ pitches and very good at all his ratings except for that boondoggle of control there. So those are kind of the targets we're looking for. My main goal getting out of the trade deadline here, if we look at our expiring contracts, is I definitely for sure want to get rid of Rowdy Tellez. I don't want to say get rid of. We want to move Rowdy Tellez, Aroldis Chapman, Yasmani Grandal, who I don't think is worth much of anything. I also would like to move Mitch Keller. I would like to move Martin Perez. I'm open to moving Ryan Borucki, though I don't want to move him. And I think all in all, those are our objectives here. So the main thing is I want to get top prospects, or the best prospects I could possibly get for Chapman, Tellez, and Keller. So I'm going to actually start pursuing that right now before I get to the little trade deadline minigame. And the first team I want to look at is Kansas City, and I want to milk them kind of for all they're worth. And I'm going to build this trade around Mitch Keller. I could also offer Keller to the Red Sox, but I think he'll have a little bit more value with Kansas City here based on the prospect trade options. So let's go ahead and locate the guys we were interested in. I'll start with Gavin Cross, and I'm actually going to add where is he? Carter Jensen. And I will add Cruz and Klein. And we will start here on the other end with Mitch Keller. And another guy who I think has some trade value for us that I don't feel like is a big piece of the future, but could help out Kansas City here, is Jack Brannigan. So I'm going to go ahead and find him. He's in our AA team right now. Look at Brannigan. He hasn't been doing great at the minor league level, but he hasn't been doing terrible either. 17 home runs in AA is fine this season. But you see, nothing really jumps off the page. He's a right-handed hitter. He's basically a worse version of Ke'Bryan Hayes at Ke'Bryan Hayes' position. So he doesn't have a ton of value to me, and I think he has the most trade value here. So they like the offer. They just need a little bit more. Let's see what they say if we do a make this work now. I don't like adding any of these guys to the trade. So what I'm going to actually do is, instead of that, I'm going to hit nevermind. I'm going to submit, and we've gotten a reply. It's a no way immediately. Let's see, discuss. So none of those guys. We'll do one more discuss trade again. Another guy that I've been looking around at who I think has some trade value, I think I could help out at second and third here, is Leover Peguero, another guy who I don't think has much of a future for our pro team. Though in fairness, I haven't really given him a chance this year, but I think I would rather move him here. So they like this trade. Let's see if I can add Povich to the trade. They say that's not fair. We'll need to offer more. I do have the ability to offer some people here. Looks like Josiah Seitler could be an option. I'm not opposed to that. Is there anyone worse than him? Joe Perez, I think, probably has more trade value elsewhere. Jace Bowen could be an option. Nothing jumping off the page here. Let's see if I submit this offer again. I've received a trade proposal again. It's a no way, which is worse than an almost. And again, I don't want to trade any of these guys they're offering. Seitler is a possibility at this point, or even maybe Bowen. What I'll do is I'll leave that on the table, and I will move to my next trade partner, which I think I want to make Seattle. And I'm going to start all these, and you'll see why in a second, because we're going to get to a trade deadline event on the 30th. And I want to have some of these deals in the works already, because we're going to be able to do something with them. So let me start with Blade. I'm going to put all three in there, and we're going to offer them. Let's offer them Mitch Keller as well and see if he has any value over here. Sorted by starting pitcher, but I'm on the wrong team. So that's not a fair deal. We'll need to offer them more. So Davis and Skeens are the guys they would like. Let's see if I add JT Brubaker there. So Keller and Brubaker, he says they think we're close. What if I add Borucki? So we're still listening, so it's not really getting much of anywhere. If I get rid of those two and put Chapman in there, this is closer. And yeah, so just Chapman himself seems to be worth a lot more than Brubaker and Borucki combined. So this could be an option. Let me see if I get rid of Mitch Keller. So Keller really didn't seem to add too much to that deal. If I do JT Brubaker, it looks like Brubaker made it worse for me somehow. So what, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys there. If I add Brubaker, it goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. So yeah, somehow it's even worse if I add JT Brubaker. I'm curious if Quinn Priester has some trade value here. I would like to not move him, So yeah, Quinn Priester actually gives me enough firepower in this. Oh, to make that a deal. And he has even more trade value than a Mitch Keller. If I did a Quinn Priester and a Ryan Baraki, it's getting closer. What I'll do is I'll just submit that straight up. And again, I have that on my table. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and check out Seattle. And what I would like to do here, I'm going to start around a Lazaro Montez Colt Emerson deal. And they are the team that needs a first baseman. So we're going to start by offering Rowdy Tellez, which they say this is going nowhere fast, which is not surprising. Let's see what happens if I add Aroldis Chapman, who I'm pretty sure is going to be our most valuable piece here. So if I add Chapman, he says, I think we're close, and now we're getting somewhere. So Montez, Emerson for Chapman, Tellez seems doable. The one problem here is they're very good at pitching, at least in the short term. If I gave them a younger guy, like I'm curious what happens if I add like a Ronzi here. So Ronzi actually doesn't really do anything. What if here I do Quinn Priester? So yeah, Quinn Priester they like. If I get rid of Aroldis Chapman, not good enough. What if I add Baraki? Okay, so Baraki opens some doors, but it's not quite Aroldis Chapman. So what I'll do here, I'm going to go ahead and submit that offer and see what their response is. It looks like they didn't even immediately respond, so we'll get a day. So instead of playing these Houston games, I'm just going to go ahead and simulate them. We'll take a look at the box scores here, but I'm more interested in focusing on the trade deadline here. So we've gotten a response from Seattle. Again, they said no way. And they don't even think we have a player to make it work, which is funny because Aroldis Chapman could have made it work, right? We have some offers. The Braves are offering Schwellenbach for Aroldis Chapman and Trey Gonzales. Schwellenbach doesn't seem like a great prospect, so I'm going to go ahead and reject that. I'm going to be very specific about rejecting trades, and you'll see why in a second. So this one's interesting. Arizona is offering Matthew Boyd, who at one time was a top prospect, and if you look at his ratings here, he still appears to be a bit of a top prospect, though he has not done much. He's been mainly in Triple-A this season for Arizona. He has pitched 1 inning and struck out 3. 1 1/3 innings. Could be an interesting guy to take a flyer on, but at 33 years old, he's not really going to be a long-term part of our team, so not really worth it. David Martin is also included in this. An interesting catcher / corner outfield prospect. In Double-A right now, he's hitting .273, only 4 homers and 220 at-bats, which isn't great. And the last guy in this trade is Mike Manuel Pena. Don't really like his ratings or futures much. My assistant GM likes that trade. We also have a trade proposal from St. Louis who's offering us Matthew Liberatore. Not a fan of that one. So I'm going to go ahead and reject that. I'll leave the Diamondbacks one on the table right now just because it's for Nick Gonzales. Even though I do like Nick Gonzales as a short and long-term part of our team, I think this isn't a terrible return for him. Let's go ahead and look at our box score here. It was Luis Ortiz getting blown up. Honeywell Jr. came in and also got blown up. Offensively, looks like no one did much of anything. We had a home run from Nick Gordon, but all in all, not a great game. And let's go ahead and simulate one more day. And another loss to Houston, this time to Framber. And it was Mitch Keller who got beat up again. Big surprise. Much better day hitting for us offensively, but couldn't bring in any runs on all those hits. 9 hits, only 3 plate. Twice by O'Neill Cruz. So, all in all, not great looking into the trade deadline, but let's go ahead and start this so you guys can kind of see what this trade deadline mini game-ish looks like. So what happens is when you start it, you're going to go to this screen, which gives you 4 4-minute rounds, and you see all the offers you have in progress here, deals that have been completed down here, and then the trade block for the whole league over here. So it's kind of interesting. It's not great. The one biggest complaint I have with this from my exploration messing around with this game so far is that this mini game, once you hit the trade deadline, teams are not more likely to hit trades that they would have elsewhere outside of this. So there's no real benefit to being in this mini game to get trades done. It's kind of just here is a fun little aside. So just a heads up, you're not going to have an easier time getting deals done in this 4-round, 4-minute around trade deadline minigame. But let's experiment with it a little bit, and I'm going to start with our Seattle trade. We have Rowdy Tellez and Quinn Priester here, and I'm going to get rid of Priester and just switch to Aroldis Chapman. And it looks like they don't like this at all. So I'm curious what I have that we could, if I add Quinn Priester back to this, what does that look like? I think we tried this earlier and that was a yes, right? If I can find Quinn Priester. Your offer's not quite good enough. And we're getting a little bit closer. Who would I have? They need a third base and a shortstop. I could offer Leover Peguero there. What about Alika Williams? Alika Williams doesn't give me much of anything there. Peguero. Also not getting it done. Brannigan, we're getting closer. So none of those guys are tipping the scales here. What if I go back here and add Nick Gordon? So can't quite accept it. For the time being, I'm going to go ahead and submit that offer and see what they think about it. And I'll go back to the trade deadline here. And we will go back to our Kansas City trade. Discuss. So it was Keller and Brannigan for Cross, Jensen, Cruz, and Klein. And I said, what if I added Povich? I think I said that right. Don't want to sort that way. At least not on the prospect screen. Cade Povich. So better up my offer. And then this one was if I offered, I think it was if I offered Peguero on this one. Let's see what happens if I do Alika Williams. My offer is not what we're looking for, but we're getting closer. Okay. And then do I have someone like a Trey Gonzalez? Does he carry weight here? Not really. Lonnie White Jr. could be interesting. I think they were interested in Seitler. So we could do Seitler. Nolasco, Rodolfo Nolasco is a prospect I don't really care about here. What happens if I get rid of Seitler? No, so we have to include Seitler. What about Peguero, but not Williams? Okay, so they like this. We've gone forward around. We've received a trade proposal. Looks like Liberatore and Mattia, so I'm going to reject that. I don't like that. Ramos and Foster from San Francisco. I don't like that. Go ahead and cancel. And where was our Kansas City trade discussions? Discuss trade. So Nolasco, Peguero, Brannigan, and Keller for Cross, Jensen, Cruz, Klein, and Povich. Basically 3 fringier prospects and 2 possible relief pitchers for Mitch Keller and a couple prospects and change over here. Not great. Ben Charrington's ambivalent about it. I'll leave it on the table, and you'll see why in a second. And I'll move to my next trade partner, which is the one I'm going to go ahead and cancel that since I have the other one on the board. I just want to clear the screen up a little bit. So let's go back to our Seattle trade. So we got Lazaro Montez and Colt Emerson for Rowdy Tellez, Aroldis Chapman, Quinn Priester. If I offer Martin Perez, they don't like that. What about Luis Ortiz? I'm just curious what these guys' value is to them. JT Brubaker. So no one really is carrying much value there. Maybe Lazaro Montez is just not an acquirable asset for us. If I get rid of Colt Emerson, yeah. So I think it's Montez is really. If I get rid of Aroldis Chapman there. All right. So Tellez could be a starting point here. And then they were. What happens if I add Nick Gordon to this trade? Wow. Interesting. Okay. What about Ryan Barucki? If I can find him on here. So they don't even like that. Where is Aroldis Chapman? So what if I add Blake Rambush? So they don't have an issue with that. If I add Jimmy Joyce, so now we're getting a little bit of pushback. If I add Priester, they're fine with that, but I can't add Montez. Montez is really the deal breaker for them. And I don't feel good adding Priester to that deal. Just going back. Charrington says, I think we'd regret it if we didn't make the deal. I really do want to get Lazaro Montez, though. He's a fascinating prospect. What about Martin Perez here instead of Quinn Priester? We're getting closer. So that really didn't do anything. What about JT Brubaker? I think that was about the same too, right? If I add Selby. One thing that's tough about negotiating in this game is it's really difficult to figure out what people's worth is. So it looks like we've made it another 4 minutes. Nothing has really happened. Let's go back to this trade. Blaze Jordan, Brian Mata, Wikelman Gonzales. If I make this trade, so one of these two teams, I'm going to end up trading Aroldis Chapman to. If I do Chapman and do Grandal, is Wikelman Gonzales the... Yes, they have no issue. I guess adding Grandal doesn't really matter at all here. So I could do Chapman for Jordan and Mata. What about Barucki for Jordan and Mata? So that's a no. And I'm sure Grandal has absolutely no trade value here. Yeah. So if I go back to reviewing my pending deals here, I don't like that trade. That was rejected, not submitted. This isn't even on the table anymore. Delete that. I'll jump back into my Boston trade here. So Quinn Priester, what about Quinn Priester and Aroldis Chapman? So they don't have an issue with that. I'm just curious, though I'm sure this is a no. If I do Roman Anthony, yeah. Forget about it indeed. What about Kyle Teal? Yeah. All right. And I really don't like trading both those aspects. What about Priester and Barucki? For Blaze Jordan, Ryan Mata, Wikelman Gonzales. So Wikelman Gonzales is really the guy, the fly in the ointment here. And I don't want to trade any of those guys. I'll go ahead and submit that offer and see if they respond to me. So they said almost. Is there anyone in here? Yeah. I don't like that. Aroldis Chapman. Let's go back to discuss trade again. So if I do, so I could do Priester and Chapman here and it would work. I know that. And then what was my option with Seattle? Emerson, Rambush, and Joyce. For Tellez, Brubaker, Alika Williams, and can I do Barucki over here? No, I can't. If I get rid of Barucki, So things are not looking great for us right now. Go back over to our trade deadline. So I think Seattle is becoming a less tentative trade partner at this point. We're about to hit trade deadline 4. I'm curious if we lose out on any of these guys right now. All right, so number 4, I've received trade proposals. So it looks like Seattle has made a trade, but it wasn't any of the guys we were interested in. Has Boston or Kansas City made trades? No, they have not. So let's go ahead. Try this one more time. Offer is not quite good enough. They don't like Nick Gordon, right? We've already determined that, yeah. No Nick Gordon. What about Xavier Edwards? No. We're not trading anyone else. What about Eddie Olivares? And I'll retain 100% of his contract. No, don't care. They do not care. So let's go back to Kansas City, who's our first trade partner. And apparently we have lost the ability to make that trade, but it's still here. Submit. Waiting to hear back from them. I thought we would hear back immediately. All right, so please submit, complete. So we have completed one trade. If we go back to that trade deadline, it was Nolasco, Paguero, Brannigan, and Keller for Gavin Cross, Carter Jensen, Steven Cruz, Will Klein, and Cade Povich. See if that turns out to be a good deal. On the other end here, Aroldis Chapman for, interesting, for Elmer Rodriguez Cruz. Kind of peculiar. I almost want to accept this just because it's on the table. If I add Blaze Jordan, what if I go back to the trade deadline? So I could get Wikelman Gonzales this way. I don't know if I'd be able to get Blaze Jordan and Brian Mata another way, though. Well, I guess I could. Let's complete that. And then last but not least, if we go back to Boston here and see if I can do Blaze Jordan and Brian Mata for Quinn Priester. That is a good deal, I accept. So they like that. I have 53 seconds to add someone I like to this trade and see if I can get away with it. I don't think I'm going to find anyone. I also don't know if this is the best trade for Quinn Priester. I feel like I might be able to get... I like the idea of having Mata in the organization. It's tough not to say yes to this. I'm going to complete it. All right. So I still have the ability, if you look, we're on our final round here now. Any deal that's already been accepted in principle, I can still accept. So I could still take this Nick Gonzales for Matthew Boyd, David Martin, and Manuel Pena. If I discuss it, again, our assistant GM thinks this is a good deal. So I think it might be worth taking, if only for the addition of David Martin here. Even though, again, I don't think he's a great prospect. He's not a bad prospect. And, Matthew Boyd, again, not terrible. Manuel Pena. But if I try and add people, you'll see trading deadline's almost done. So I can only agree on trades that have already been completed. Now, I do like Nick Gonzales. I kind of have a soft spot for him. I think he fits in well with our organization as far as what we're trying to accomplish. He was hitting 281, 757 OPS for a second baseman, especially a guy who's going to hit in the back end of your lineup, isn't too bad. But we did add Nick Gordon, which makes his long-term prospects with us a lot worse than they were without Nick Gordon. Or sorry, yeah. I think if only because my assistant GM likes this deal so much, I'm going to go ahead and complete it. The Matthew Boyd edition is very interesting. We've completed that trade. And so a quick review of what we've accomplished at the trade deadline here. We have traded Nick Gonzales for Matthew Boyd, David Martin, and Manuel Pena. We've traded Quinn Priester for Blaze Jordan and Brian Mata. We've traded Aroldis Chapman for Wikelman Gonzales and Elmer Rodriguez Cruz. And we have traded Mitch Keller, Jack Brannigan, Leover Peguero, and Rodolfo Nolasco for Gavin Cross, Carter Johnson, Steven Cruz, Will Klein, and Cade Povich. We still have Rowdy Tellez, which isn't bad. It would have been nice to be able to move him to Seattle, but, Seattle wasn't really playing ball with us there. So, unfortunately, we don't get any of those guys, but, maybe we'll be able to sign Rowdy Tellez long-term. Either way, we'll finish out the trade deadline. It is over, and now we have to set up our lineup for the rest of the year. So let's go ahead and look at our organization. Or I shouldn't say for the rest of the year, just moving forward. So we have 2 open spots on our org. And if you look at it, It's probably going to be one pitcher and one hitter. If we look at our hitters, Connor Joe, Josh Palacios, Yasmani Grandal. I think it's because Edwards. And so let's actually go ahead and we have Contreras, Brubaker, Meyer. I think one of the guys that is going to be on that roster is going to be, if we go to DFA'd, Matthew Boyd. We'll throw him up there. I'm going to throw Brian Mata into, we got to put him on the 40-man first, but then we'll throw him into AAA. And look at our rotation before I decide who the last guy we're going to call up is. So our bench coach thinks that we should have a rotation that looks something like this, where Max Meyer somehow is now our ace. Based on the way Meyer has started this season, I think what I actually want to do, so we have Lauer down here as a follower. I'm going to go ahead and make Meyer a follower too. And see if we have any luck with that. And I think I might do like a Bailey Falter into Max Meyer or a Martin Perez into Max Meyer kind of situation. Let's go ahead, and I believe that was on pitching strategy. There we go. Sorry, player strategy. And we're going to find Max Meyer. And because he's had a great one time through the rotation, and then when that fourth inning hits, it immediately goes sideways. So we'll use as a follower there. And then, oops. We'll actually make that a faster hook for him. I think Martin Perez is the right choice to make as the opener here. So I'm going to make him the opener. And then we'll go back to our pitching staff. I'm going to make Ronzi our number one now. And then we'll go from Ronzi to... Let's see, Matthew Boyd is 38% tired. Max Meyer is 36% tired. JT Brubaker, 66% tired. And last but not least is Eric Lauer, 39% tired. So we'll do some type of rotation like this. Right, left, right, left. I think I like this. We have Martin Perez now as a scheduled opener. Mop up. Lauer is, interesting. They like Baraki as an opener here. That could actually be an interesting fusion too. We're a little light on our bullpen, so I'm actually going to go, if we go back to our organization, with one of those two relief pitchers that we just acquired from Kansas City. And first I have to find out where they went. So this might take a second because I don't have the ability to sort by relief pitchers through my whole organization. So we have Steven Cruz here in AA. The other one I believe was Will Klein, if I'm not mistaken, who is floating around in the ether somewhere. I guess I could do it this way. Klein. Will Klein is playing in the Florida League. Is that one? Blaze Jordan is there too. Interesting. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to do a complete minor league system setup just to get that taken care of. I'm curious if Klein stays down here. I doubt it. That way we'll just clean things up a little bit. And then back to our relief pitching situation here. Cruz is still in AA. Is Klein really still in Florida League? Brian Klein, Will Klein is in single A, so not A+. He's all the way down in single A as the closer. I think he should be called up. So based on that, I think I will go with neither of them. And we'll look at Brady Feigl as an option. He is a lefty. Carmen Majensky's down there. I forgot about that. Let's call Majensky back up. I think that's probably the way to go. We could also go with Brian Mata too. But I think I like keeping him in AAA for the time being. So we'll get Majensky back up. We're back to a 26-man roster. We have more versatility in our bullpen now. He'll be a middle reliever, and we'll do use more often on him. And I think we are good moving forward. So we will simulate this last game against Houston. Hopefully we don't get swept, but I have a feeling we're going to, and we did. Roansy's now day-to-day, but I'm fine with that. I think he should be good up until his next start, but we might need to do a spot start. And actually, I am going to go ahead and do that just because. Place on the IL, 15-day, and we will call up someone from the AAA. And I think I'm going to go with Jared Jones. And I'm going to see what it looks like with Jared Jones getting the next start here. So we've gotten swept. Roansy gave up 4 through 4. Honeywell and Falter did okay coming in relief. Montas, the player of the game, shut us down with a quality start. Looks like really poor hitting performance overall. So not much to say about that series. We have August coming up. I think things are looking good for the future. We did not have a great trade deadline, to say the least, but I don't think it was a bad trade deadline. I would have liked to have gotten more from Mitch Keller and Rowdy Tellez. Obviously, we got nothing from Tellez, but I think Keller was the centerpiece of a trade that I think netted us some good futures moving forward at the very least. So, hopefully things look better than they did on July 30th. But the only way to see is to move forward. So we're going to try and power through the end of the season and get into 2025, which is the title year of this game, actually, even though we're playing the 2024 season right now. We'll get into 2025 and see if that is actually going to be the year of the Pirates. Between now and the end of the season, we're going to be experimenting with adding some guys to the big league roster, especially when rosters expand in September. But the big thing we're going to need to be doing moving forward is look at signing David Bednar to a long-term deal, as well as navigating some other contract situations and figuring out what's going to happen in free agency. Once we hit that point, our goal is always to still stay in the bottom 5 in payroll. And if we go to the league really fast, somewhere in here, I promise. Power rankings, league report, home, finances report. There we go. All right, league payroll. We are number 3. Only the Reds and the A's are below us, and the A's don't even really count as a major league team. So we have dropped significantly in this. We are under $90 million, one of just 3 teams, us and the Reds being the other 2. So we're going to try and stay there. We're going to try and be a bottom 5 payroll team and win a championship. Whether or not that's doable, we'll see. But my goal and my timeline is I think we can do this within 5 seasons. So keep watching and see if we can pull this off. And if you have any suggestions, advice, questions, comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will make it to the future together. As always, go Bucks. Thank you for watching, and see ya next time.